Hi beautiful people, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, and if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. It's great to have you in my little corner of YouTube where we speak all things adulting, faith, and lifestyle. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That red button must turn gray. Give this video a massive thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Comment down below what you enjoyed about today's video and what other videos you'd like to see. Share this with anybody and everybody who you think might need it. And last but not least, hit those notification bells so that you do not miss another video. So without wasting any more time, let us get straight into today's video. So today's video is about something that I have been working on. I don't want to use the word struggling. So I've been working on this for a number of years, for as long as I can remember actually. And in past or actually recent conversations, I've realized that I'm not the only person who has this here being at the front of your mind. I'm going to try and refrain from using the word struggling because I don't think we should be struggling with this. I think it should be something that we're actively working towards managing and learning how to cope with, if it's not something that we can completely eliminate. Okay, cool. So as you can tell by the title of today's video, I want to speak about how I am managing with imposter syndrome, especially in the workplace. I think I always had to manage my imposter syndrome, but when I started working, it skyrocketed and I was just like, dude, what am I doing here? I don't know why I'm here. I don't know anything. Yeah. But before getting into how I manage with my imposter syndrome, let me not call it because if I say it's my imposter syndrome, then I'm claiming it, and I'm not trying to claim something like this. I'm trying to claim wealth and success, not imposter syndrome. So how I manage or deal or cope with imposter syndrome, especially in the workplace, I want to quickly explain what imposter syndrome is, because it is not something that is commonly known to a lot of people, as I have realized in past conversations. So without wasting any more time, let us get into the definition of what imposter syndrome is, and then we'll get into the meat of how I deal with imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is basically a feeling of self-doubt, especially when it comes to your accomplishments. You find that sometimes you feel like you don't deserve certain accomplishments. Sometimes you feel like you're a fraud. Sometimes, for me, it manifests a lot in a lack of self-confidence, especially in my abilities. Imposter syndrome, you kind of feel like a fake, right? And you feel like you don't belong there. You feel like you can't do this. You feel like you shouldn't be here. You feel like you don't deserve that job or that degree or that promotion or that bursary, whatever it might be. It feels like you're just a fraud. You feel like you're faking it. You feel like you shouldn't be here. You happen to stumble into this. It happened to be luck. When it actually isn't. You are actually really, really amazing as a human being. Just putting that out there. But a lot of people find that they deal with these type of emotions, especially in the workplace. I also dealt a lot with it when I was in high school and varsity. More so in high school. I didn't really feel that too much in varsity, but it definitely came back full force when I started working. The ultimate ghetto. But that is essentially what imposter syndrome is in the most layman terms that I can find. So before I get into how I manage or cope with imposter syndrome, especially in the workplace, I want to make a disclaimer. I am not a professional or an expert in this field. I did not study anything psychology related, anything to do with mental health, any therapy courses, whatever. I'm not an expert. So everything that I'm going to share with you is purely based on my opinion and things that I do and things that have worked for me. If you feel like these are not sufficient, please do seek professional help. See a therapist, see a psychologist, whatever it might be. Please do seek professional help if you cannot deal with imposter syndrome by yourself, because it does all manifest in the mind, and you need to speak to someone about it. And if you can't speak to someone who is not qualified, definitely speak to someone who is. Please, thanks. I've also seen a therapist in the past regarding imposter syndrome and my feelings and all of that stuff. So don't neglect that. Do seek professional help if you feel like you can't deal with it alone or deal with it however I might share. Anyway, let us get into point number one. The first thing that I do to manage or cope with imposter syndrome is to be mindful of my thoughts. I don't think we realize how negative our thoughts are, especially towards ourselves. Guys, we are actually very mean to ourselves and we don't give ourselves enough credit. So whenever I think negatively about myself, whenever I think I'm not good enough, whenever I think I'm not smart enough, or I think that I don't belong, the first thing I do is turn to the word and turn to the promises that God has said and spoken over my life. I also am reminded now of the verse that says, as a man thinketh, so he is. And if you're thinking negatively, obviously that's going to manifest in your actions, because your thoughts manifest through your actions, and you don't want to find yourself acting negatively towards yourself because you thought negatively about yourself. I think it all starts in the mind. For me, it all starts in the mind, and once you've gotten the mind right, then you can do a whole lot of other things. So be mindful of your thoughts, be mindful of how you think about yourself and how you speak to yourself, especially internally, because your thoughts about yourself are basically how you are speaking to yourself, right? And even though you're not uttering those words, those thoughts are extremely, extremely dangerous if you don't manage them, put them on a leash, and control them and remind them who God is, because God says that you are smart. God says that you are called and you are here for a purpose, and he put you in this room for a reason. And if you don't believe it, remember what God said. I find myself doing that a lot, especially when I'm feeling very discouraged and I feel like I can't do something. Then I remember that I can do all things. Then I remember that he has given me the ability to acquire what I've gotten, to acquire the achievements that I've gotten. And that way I'm able to then transform my way of thinking and alter it to something positive. So I'm not saying that eliminating negative thoughts is 100% possible. They do come, they happen, but what do you do about those negative thoughts when you are faced with them? Just leaving them to simmer in your brain is not going to help you. If anything, it does more damage. So what are you doing proactively to manage your negative thoughts, to manage how you think about yourself, therefore how you talk about yourself? Because like I said, how you think is basically how you talk about yourself. The second thing I do is talk to a friend or a family member, usually one of my siblings, and I tell them how I'm feeling, because sometimes I've realized the importance of a circle that will encourage you when you can't encourage yourself. And that is why you have to be so intentional about the people that you keep around you, the people you confide in, because they are going to be there at 3 a.m. when you are crying, thinking you aren't good enough, to say friend, to say sis, to say bro. You are more than what you think you are. You are more capable than what you think you are capable of. You are more worthy. You are more deserving. You are more loved than what you think you are, and I think it's very important to be able to lean on friends, especially when you can't encourage yourself. Lean on your friends, lean on your siblings, lean on a spiritual leader, lean on your therapist if you're going to therapy, whatever it is. Find someone who you can tell, who will encourage you when you can't encourage yourself, who will turn those negative thoughts into positive thoughts when you can't find the strength to do it yourself. Because research shows, and I've read a lot about this, research shows that people who deal with imposter syndrome, like I said, I don't want to use the word struggling, but people who deal with imposter syndrome often face or have been diagnosed with depression as well, right? So like you need someone when you are depressed, you need someone when you're struggling with the thoughts and the feelings of inadequacy and whatever. Because I know if I pick up my phone now and call Nkateko, Mpo, Chietza, or my sisters or whatever, I know they're going to tell me, Rory, what you're feeling is a lie from the pit of hell, and this is what the Lord says about you. This is what I say about you, and this is how you should think. And as much as you don't believe a word I'm saying right now, force yourself to believe it, because you are so good, you are so beautiful, you are so capable, and so forth. If you don't have people who are going to force you into thinking like that in your life, on your low days when you can't carry yourself, it's going to be very difficult to manage, because no man is an island here. And if you can't speak the truth into your life, you need someone else who's going to speak that into your life. Because we do have weekdays as well. But anyway, find a friend, find somebody, just somebody, sibling, grandmother, whatever it might be. Find somebody to tell about your feelings, because that person has been appointed to you by God, has been appointed to be placed in your life for such a time as this, when you can't encourage yourself. The third thing I do is self-reflect. I track my progress through self-reflection. Sometimes I do this weekly, sometimes I do it daily, sometimes I do it monthly. But I found that if I track, or if I take time to reflect and look back at how far I've come, I actually realize how well I'm doing. Sometimes, one bad day is so immaterial in the greater scheme of things. So one bad day of losing, for example, 5,000 Rand. I don't know why I'm using this analogy, but for example, one day of losing 5,000 Rand is so immaterial in the greater schemes of things. If at the end of the month, you've made 500,000 Rand, that 5,000 Rand is nothing. So one day of, messing up at work is minuscule in a whole month where you've gotten so many well dones. That one, Rory, you needed to improve on A, B, and C. I'll speak more about that now. But Rory, you needed to improve on A, B, and C. Go back and fix it. Is so immaterial. Just that one out of 31 or 30 days of the month, that one day is so immaterial. So sit back. I think just be intentional about making time to reflect, because sometimes you don't realize how well you're actually doing, because we're always rushing to do the next task that we don't look back and deal with how we thought or how we performed in the previous task. So definitely take the time to track your progress, to self-reflect and do all of that stuff. It's very important, because guys, life moves so quickly. And while you're still beating yourself up about one thing, the next thing is coming. So make sure you go back to those feelings of beating yourself up, because if you don't intentionally make the time to go back, you're going to sit with that, and it's going to be an open wound that you haven't worked on, or that you haven't cleansed or cleaned, or whatever you want to call it. And it's going to come back to bite you in the long run. So just remember, one bad day in a month is immaterial in the greater scheme of things. You are doing much better than you think, but you wouldn't know that if you don't sit and track your progress and reflect on how you've performed over the past few days, weeks, months, years. I hope that helps. The fourth thing I do is ask for feedback. One thing about me, you can ask anybody at work. I ask for feedback regularly, constructive feedback. If somebody says, Rory, I don't like the outcome of what you did, I ask, how could I have done it differently for it to have the outcome that you wanted? And yes, sometimes it really hurts, because sometimes you think, listen. But more times than not, I found that sometimes we've kind of missed the mark on what the task was. And it's not that you're not good at what you do. It's sometimes you didn't understand what it was. But yeah, that's another point for another day. Asking for feedback, especially from your superiors, your managers, and so forth, will allow you to see whether you're on track, because sometimes we measure our success and our performance very harshly. So when you hear it from someone who knows more than you, who is more experienced than you, you're able to sit back and say, hey, I'm not doing too badly. Yes, I need to improve on A, B, and C based on the feedback that I received, but I'm doing pretty okay, I think that goes to another topic that I haven't really touched on in a while, but being gentle towards yourself. I think for me, usually when I get constructive criticism, I usually take a step back and say, Rory, you need to stop being so hard on yourself, because those are usually opening or eye-opening moments for me to say, you're being very harsh on yourself. You're being very tough on yourself. Your managers are saying you're doing well, but because we're now on perfectionism, you want, A, B, and C, which, like I said, I'm a perfectionist at heart. Sometimes you can't avoid, some of these traits, and it's okay, but always remember to be gentle towards yourself, because sometimes we are very hard on ourselves. And when that feedback comes, it's like, hey, I'm actually not doing as badly as I thought. Yes, I need to improve. There's always room for improvement, but I'm actually not doing that bad. Well done. Pat on the back, So definitely ask for feedback. Not only will it make you realize how well you're doing, but it also gives you, developmental areas that you can work on for the next task or for the next project and so forth. I think that will also help with your confidence when you realize that you're actually meeting those developmental areas and, filling those gaps that were once there. It's very important, I think, to receive constructive feedback from your superiors so that you can improve for the future. The fifth one, you guys are gonna hate me for this one. But the fifth one that I do to cope with imposter syndrome is fake it. There, I said it. I fake confidence, especially on the days where I can't speak myself into being confident, when the devil's voice is louder than God's voice on that day, whatever it might be. I fake it. I get in there, my palms are sweaty. Listen, my hands are shaking, but I'm gonna walk in there like I own the room. I'm gonna walk in there like God sent me into that room, because God sent me into that room for a reason, for a purpose, and I'm there, and I'm gonna own that space, even if I'm owning that space with faked energy. Because most of the time, I wake up and I feel very inadequate, very unqualified, especially at work. Listen, yo guys, work, yo. Especially because you work with such smart people with so much experience and all of that stuff, you have to just walk in and fake that confidence sometimes. Like sometimes no amount of pep talks will get you to the level of confidence that you need to survive a day. So as unconventional as this tip is, I fake it. I'm not gonna lie, I fake that confidence more than I'd like to, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to secure the bag. And if that means faking the confidence, I'm not saying be arrogant and, act like you own the world. Still be humble, but fake that confidence, because people will think that you're confident. And sometimes that confidence ends up feeling natural, actually. You know how they say fake it till you make it? Sometimes that confidence starts becoming embedded in you because you're teaching yourself to be confident, even during those faking moments. And it's very important to learn how to be confident. It's like I said, I've said this multiple times in previous videos that I'm a very shy, reserved person. I didn't, pop out of the womb with confidence. I had to teach myself how to be confident. And some days I have to go back to those lessons, because some days I really feel like I shouldn't be here. Some days I really feel like, why am I getting that well done? I got one question wrong. The rest are right, yeah, but that one question, it's wrong. Why are you saying well done to me? So in those moments, you fake that confidence. You walk into that presentation like you own that room. You walk into that boardroom like you own it. You walk into that exam hall like you own it, into that lecture room like you own it, because you're there for a reason. God would not have opened a door. God would not have put you in a job. God would not have put you in spaces that he doesn't, or that he knows you can't handle. He put you there for a reason, because he knows that he's qualified you and given you the abilities and the capabilities to flourish and to thrive in those spaces, in those rooms, in those boardrooms. So walk in there like God sent you there, because he sent you there. He is guiding your footsteps. So he sent you there. Walk in there like you believe it. And if that means you have to give yourself a pep talk every morning, sometimes I do. Most days I do. Give myself a pep talk while driving to work, or while you're in the train or whatever. It helps. It helps. That goes back to what I was saying in the previous, or in the first tip, about how you speak to yourself and how you think about yourself. Giving yourself that pep talk conditions your mind for the day, conditions how you speak about yourself for the day. And sometimes that pep talk wears off at like midday. And then you have to go to the bathroom, stare yourself in the mirror and say, girl, you're here for a reason. You're killing it. You're smashing it. You're doing better than you think. And then you compose yourself and you go back and sit at your desk and continue with a new level of high. So fake it. Fake it. So those are all the tips that I use to manage imposter syndrome, to cope with imposter syndrome in the workplace. I apply these things daily because, wow, every day you wake up is a battlefield. That's all I'm going to say. Every day you wake up, it's a battlefield of the mind more than anything, because like I said, it starts in the mind. So before I close off, I quickly want to share a Bible verse with you that is kind of that boost that I always use, especially when I need to remind myself that my qualifications don't come from me. I've been qualified by God. Even when I feel unqualified, God has placed me in those rooms because he has qualified me. He has called me to be in those rooms. He has called me to come there and represent him so that people can see his light through me in those spaces. So I'm going to quickly share this. I'm going to read it. Like I said, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 4 to 6, it says, "Such is the confidence and the steadfast resilience and absolute trust that we have through Christ towards God. Not that we are sufficiently qualified in ourselves to claim anything as coming from us, but our sufficiency and qualifications come from God. He has qualified us, making us sufficient as ministers of a new covenant of salvation through Christ, not of the letter of a written code, but of the Spirit. For the letter of the law kills by revealing sin and demanding obedience, but the Spirit gives life. So remember that in those moments of, feeling like an imposter, feeling like a fraud, remember that you have been qualified by God. He has set you there for a reason, and ask the Holy Spirit to continue speaking to you, even in those moments, of weakness, or even in those moments of feeling down and feeling hard and, feeling unconfident about yourself. Ask the Holy Spirit to, in those moments, remind you that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are smart. You are called. You are loved. You are chosen. You are co-heir with Christ. And if Christ came to save the world, honey, you can save that project. You can save that budget. You can save the problem that you are solving, whatever it might be. You are called. And ask the Holy Spirit to remind you of that, even when you are feeling like you shouldn't be there. So with that, we've reached the end of today's video. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share this with anybody and everybody who you think might need it. And with that, with so much love and so much light from me to you, have an amazing rest of the day. Stay safe and God bless. Bye, guys.